Okay, tonight is Genesis chapter 30.
And when Rachel saw that she bare Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister, and said unto Jacob, Give me children, or else I die. And Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, Am I in God's stead, who hath withheld from thee the fruit of the womb? And she said, Behold my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear upon my knees, that I may also have children by her. And she gave him Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife, and Jacob went in unto her.
Okay, as this chapter begins, you see, if you recall at the end of the previous chapter, Leah had 4 sons, whereas Rachel was unable to have any children, and so now you see her frustration. All right, in 30 it says that when Rachel saw that she was not coming up with any children, but her sisters popped them out one after another, all right, that says she envied her sister and said to Jacob, Give me children or else I'm going to die, all right? My sister is like lording it over me, saying, look, 4 sons to none, all right? So she was very frustrated. But of course Jacob says, well, what do you want me to do about it, all right? That I guess they were doing the thing you do to make babies, but it wasn't happening, all right? So he says, am I in God's place? God's the one who's withholding this from you. So, like I said, I'm trying my best. I can't create a baby, other than what we're already doing. So finally, in her frustration, she does what, again, some women have done, and in fact, if you remember way back the story of Abraham and Sarah, right, when they were waiting to have a son, and so Sarah finally said, Here, take my maid and make a baby with her, and so that now Rachel's going to do the same, right? So she's saying that here's my maid Bilhah, all right, go ahead and sleep with her, all right, and then you can make a baby with her, and because she was the handmaid, it would be considered to be as if Rachel was the mother, all right, even though she wouldn't be. So that's why I said, I can't have children myself, apparently, so go ahead and use my maid to have children. At least then, it's my maid, so this would be my son then, or my daughter, right? Since she's not able to apparently have any children of her own at this point.
And Bilhah conceived and bare Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God hath judged me, and hath also heard my voice, and hath given me a son. Therefore called she his name Dan. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again, and bare Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, With great wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Naphtali.
So it worked, right? It says that Jacob slept with Rachel's maid, Bilhah, and Bilhah conceived and had a son. All right, so now here's a son that Rachel can say, all right, this is basically from my side of the family now, all right? So that's why Rachel says, God has judged me, but he's heard my voice, all right? I guess she felt judged in terms of not being able to have herself, but she said, well, at least he's hearing my cry that I would like to have some kind of a baby to call my own. So here her maid had a baby, and so they called his name Dan, and then I guess they kept it going, right? So they had another go around, and Bilhah had another son who was named Naphtali, all right? So now Jacob has 6 sons, all right, 4 from Leah and 2 from Bilhah. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that to the chart. Okay, so we'll write Bilhah here, and let's see what it is, Dan and Naphtali. So Bilhah, the handmaid of Rachel, has 2 sons, Dan and Naphtali, and with the other 4, so Jacob now has 6 sons.
When Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, A troop cometh, and she called his name Gad. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. And Leah said, Happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher.
See, it looks to me like it's a competition at this point. All right, Leah had the first 4 sons. All right, well now Rachel threw her maid into the mix and had 2. So now the score is getting closer. It's 4-2 now. All right, so but Leah herself, I guess, had stopped being able to have children at this point. So that's why it says when she saw that she had left bearing, she said, well, I can't fall behind here. So here I got a maid too. So take my maid and make babies. This way they can count on my side of the ledger. All right, so Zilpah was her maid, and so she has two sons with Jacob as the father. All right, the one is called Gad, and named Gad, and one is named Asher. All right, so that's two more sons for Jacob, bringing the total to 8. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add those names up here. All right, so now we have another mother named Zilpah. Okay, and what was it, Gad?
Yes.
And Gad and Asher?
Yes.
So now we have Jacob with 8 sons, all right, 3 different mothers, but 8 sons, okay? So we have Leah has Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah. Bilhah has Dan and Naphtali. Zilpah has Gad and Asher. All right, so now a total of 8 sons. But if you're keeping score, see, then Leah is leading 6-2. All right, because like I said, the ones for the maid count for her.
And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest, and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, Give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. And she said unto her, Is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? And wouldest thou take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, Therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and said, Thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night.
I guess, some time, of course, has passed. Of course, it does take time for babies to be made, all right? So the years are starting to pass. And so now Reuben, who's the oldest, says he goes out and finds some mandrakes in the field, which is a type of a flower, right? So he brings back these flowers and gives them to his mother Leah. And now Rachel sees them and says, hey, I'd like to have some of those. So now you can see the rivalry between the sisters, though, that she's bad enough you took away my husband, now you want to take away my flowers too, all right, that my son brought. So he says, how about we make a deal here, right? And if I give you my flowers, you send Jacob over to my tent tonight, right, and let him spend the night with me. So Rachel agrees, right? Says, okay, fine. Okay, give me the flowers, and I'll send Jacob over to you tonight, all right? So she basically sold him for some mandrakes, which again to me is memorable of, or it's a reminder of how like when his brother Esau came in and wanted the lentils for dinner and sold the birthright, for it, just for dinner. So here she said, yeah, go ahead, you can sleep with my husband. I just want some flowers, all right? And so she takes the flowers, and now you see in 16 it says Jacob came out of the field, and Leah said basically, I've hired you for tonight, so you have to sleep with me because I gave Rachel flowers, so now you gotta come over to my tent tonight and spend the night with me, right? So you see, like I said, the competition between them, and again, it's a very dysfunctional arrangement, right? Where it's I guess he probably normally stayed with Rachel because she was the one he loved, but so Leah said, hey, okay, I gave her flowers, so now no, I bought you for tonight, so you're with me, and so then he said that as in 16, so he spent the night with her that night.
And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived, and bare Jacob the 5th son. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and bare Jacob the 6th son. And Leah said, God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun. And afterwards she bare a daughter, and called her name Dinah.
Okay, so from this night of that was purchased, if you will, with flowers, so here she became pregnant again, right? I mean, here she had stopped having children for a while, but now it says she got pregnant again, and she had another son named Issachar. Okay, and then apparently again it's still in the mode that she had another one that was named Zebulun. Okay, so that's why she said that's 6 from me alone. All right, so she now had 6 sons of Jacob, and now in 21 it points out that she even went one more and had a girl named Dinah. All right, not that anybody cares about that because it's a girl. All right, but yet she had a girl as well. We'll point out later that it's often said like how many children Jacob had, all right? the girl is not counted, right? when it talks about how many children he had, right? But yet, I mean, she had a girl as well. So she had 6 sons and 1 daughter that came from Leah. Okay, so we'll then add this to the scoreboard. All right, so we'll go for Issachar, and then Zebulon. All right, and then what we'll do is we'll put a dotted line under this, and then we'll put Dinah down here. She's a girl. Okay, so having added these names to the list, all right, so you can see now Jacob has 10 sons and 1 daughter, all right, and so 6 of them were born to Leah and 2 each to the 2 maids for a total of 10, all right, so at this point he has 10 sons.
And God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her and opened her womb. And she conceived and bare a son, and said, God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, and said, the Lord shall add to me another son.
And so finally it happens in verse 22. It says, God remembered Rachel, and finally she's now expecting for the first time. All right, after watching all these other ones, 10 other sons be born and a daughter, now finally she's expecting her own baby. And she says in 23, God's taken away my reproach. You know, because again, you think about women at the time that, you know, again, sadly, they were not known for pretty much anything other than making babies, all right? So you couldn't do that. It's like, well, what good were you, basically? So that's why she felt like, I'm like worthless here. I can't even make babies. So that's why she said, God has taken away my reproach. It says, and finally she calls his name Joseph, all right? And then even says, the Lord's going to give me one more. You know, maybe I don't know if it was, you know, she just felt that way that it was going to have one more, all right? But yet, at least here it says she had her firstborn finally was named Joseph, and one more to come. Okay, so we'll finally put her name over here, which happily we had 4 columns drawn, all right? And her son is named Joseph. Okay, so pointing out that although Joseph is now the 11th son of Jacob, right? But yet, when you remember that Rachel was really the woman he loved in the first place, so that's why later on we find Joseph as a favored one, right? That some people might not realize, well, he was like the 11th son, so why should he be the favored one? It's because he was the firstborn of Rachel, who was the one who Jacob really loved, all right? So that's the reason that I usually like to do it this way, right, with the chart instead of just listing them top to bottom. I do it by the mother, because you can then see Joseph as the firstborn of Rachel. So that's why later on he becomes he becomes a favored son of Jacob.
And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, send me away, that I may go unto mine own place and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done thee. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, for I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. And he said, appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. And he said unto him, thou knowest how I have served thee, and how thy cattle was with me, for it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming, and now when shall I provide for mine own house also?
Okay, so at this point, Jacob is seeing his growing family that is now up to a total of 12 children, 11 sons and 1 daughter, and he has 2 wives, and they have 2 maids, so his family has grown quite a bit. So he's feeling like maybe it's time for them to move on, all right? That they've been living at the home of his father-in-law, so he's feeling like maybe it's time to move on, all right? So in 25 it says, Jacob said to Laban, send me away that I can go to my own place, my own country. You may remember that when Jacob spoke to the Lord, or the Lord spoke to him, that he said that this is the land I promised you, not the land where Laban lives, but the land of Canaan, right, where Abraham lived and Isaac lived. So at some point he needs to be going back there, right? So now you would assume that at least 14 years have passed, right? Because remember that was the deal. He served 7 years for the first wife, and then another 7 for the second wife. So you would assume at least the 14 years have passed by now, and so it's he figures now I can leave, right? All right. So in 26, give me my wives and children for whom I have served thee, all right, for 14 years, and let me go, all right? But now Laban doesn't want him to go, right? Because he says, hey, things are good here since you've been here, so we'd like you to stay. So tell me how much you want me to pay you, right? He's been working basically for nothing, just to earn the right to marry his daughters. So now he says, hey, all right, the 14 years is up, but tell me what I can pay you to get you to stay, because everything's doing well. The cattle are doing well, and the crops, everything is going well. So he says, tell me what I can pay you, right? So you see in 29 and 30, this is Jacob's response. He says, well, you know how I've served thee, and how thy cattle have done well. And it was very few when I came, now it's increased to the multitude, right? So I mean, I've really helped you out here, but when do I get to start building my own house, my own household, and my own family, right? I can't just be a servant for you my whole life. That I have my own wives, children, and so forth now. So that's all he's just saying. I feel like it's time that I should be moving on and setting up my own household. Right, but Laban's saying, well, tell me how much I can pay you to get you to stay. Or he wants him to stay.
And he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all thy flock today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and of such shall be my hire. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, and it shall come for my hire before thy face. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and brown among the sheep, that shall be counted stolen with me.
Laban asked him, all right, again, what can I give you to get you to stay? Right? So finally Jacob, he has an idea, right? Kind of like when he originally came up with the idea, I'll work for you for 7 years to get to marry your daughter. Right, so like I said, he has a family, but if they would leave, they would leave basically with the clothes on their back, and and that's pretty much it. Whatever belongings they may have accumulated, right? So he's thinking, gee, it'd be nice to have some cattle and livestock too. So he says, listen, instead of paying me, how about you give me some of your cattle, right? And we'll make it easy, right? Because obviously maybe one cow looks the same as another, really. So like, how would you know this is my cow, this is your cow, and so forth? So he says, let's make it easy. Most of these cows are just a solid color, right? Probably like brown or something, right? But some of them have stripes. A few of them have stripes or spots or whatever. So how about I'll take the ones with the stripes and the spots, right? So this way it'll be easy to tell which ones are mine and which ones are yours. Right, so that's really what he's saying, is that out of all the cattle that are here, maybe a smaller, maybe 10% of them, let's just say, or have stripes and spots. So how about I'll take those, and those will be mine, and then those will be my pay for working for you, and all the rest are yours. Okay, so that's what he's saying about being speckled or spotted among the cattle, the goats, and the sheep, and so forth. Right, and finally at 33 he says, so this way, if you see any cattle that are with me, that are not speckled or spotted, that's why it says they'll be counted as stolen. In other words, you're not going to see any solid ones on my side of the fence here, because those shouldn't be mine, right? That's how you can tell. If you see any solid colored ones with me, those don't belong there, so feel free to take them back. So that's all. Just saying, I'll take all the ones with the spots and the speckles and the stripes and whatever, and you keep all the rest, right? So that's what he's asking for his pay, just so this way I can start off with some cattle, and I can have a few to get started with my own household when the time comes.
And Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to thy word. And he removed that day the he-goats that were ring-straked and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey betwixt himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks.
So Laban must have looked over his flocks, and he said, yeah, I can live with that. I can agree with that. I guess it's not that many that I'm going to lose. So let's take all the ones with the stripes and the spots and so forth, and we'll separate them out. All right. So those will be yours, and the rest will be mine. And so this will be your pay for working for me. Right. And notice that he put them probably as far away as he could and still be maybe on his property. It says it was 3 days' journey, right? So however long it would take to walk, and take 3 days to walk, that's how far away Jacob's cattle were put from Laban's. This way there would be no mixing up where they, maybe they would wander, or into each other's camp and whatever, okay? So this way we know the ones that are way down there are yours, and the ones that are over here are mine.
And Jacob took him rods of green poplar and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and pilled white strakes in them, and made the white appear which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had pilled before the flocks in the gutters in the watering troughs, when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle ring-straked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-straked, and all the brown in the flock of Laban, and he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not unto Laban's cattle.
You may not necessarily be able to follow from what's written there, but Jacob has a little trick up his sleeve here. Okay. There was a belief, or it was a myth, or whatever, that when cattle conceived, right, in other words, when a baby was made inside of them, that what the cattle was seeing at the time would affect what the baby cattle looked like. All right. So if you accept that myth as a possibility, right? So now what's Jacob doing? It says he's getting rods and putting them in front of the cattle, so the cattle are seeing stripes in front of them while they go to drink, and then while they're making babies, they're seeing stripes in front of them. So therefore, the babies they would have stripes, and therefore they belong to him, because all the cattle with the stripes or the spots are for him. All right. So he's now. I mean, I say it's a myth because I don't really think what you see is going to be transferred onto your baby. All right. But yet, I would think more likely that God was blessing Jacob, for his working so hard, and plus, he wanted him to have cattle and so forth. So it worked out that way, right? It says that the ones who did that, it says in 39, and the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle, ring-straked, speckled, and spotted, right? So here they're having babies with stripes and spots on them. So stripes and spots, so those are mine, right? And so now he's in 40. He says Jacob did separate the lambs and set the face of the flocks toward the ring-strakes, and all the brown ones of the flock of Laban, and he put his own flocks by themselves, and not near Laban's cattle, right? So suddenly, now more than half of the ones being born have stripes and spots. So now it's like, okay, separate them out. Stripes and spots to my side, and the solids go here. And suddenly his is now growing and growing because they're having babies with stripes and spots.
And it came to pass, whensoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle, and maidservants, and menservants, and camels, and asses.
You see what he's doing here? So it says here in 41, it says, whenever the stronger cattle were conceiving, he put the rods in front of them, so that the stronger cattle would have babies with stripes. But the feeble ones, or the weaker ones, to take the rods away, they can make babies that are solid. All right. So this way, Laban got the weaker cattle, and Jacob kept the stronger cattle, because the stronger ones were being born with the stripes. Okay. And so that's why it says 43. And the man Jacob increased exceedingly, and had much cattle. All right, and so forth. And needed lots of service to take care of them, and so forth. All right, because now his flock was growing. And like I say, I believe it was more God was blessing his flock, but at least to their understanding, whatever they put in front of the cattle's eyes when they were conceiving would affect it, and so he was planning it out so he would get a nice growing crop and have the stronger cattle to form his own flock.